welcome back to The Artistic Vision, a podcast on theology and the arts presented by Creo Arts. And today we're having an old friend of mine on the podcast. I knew Danielle Gudgel, who we have on. I knew Danielle and Brent in Austin, Texas, when we lived there. Brent was running a nonprofit called Deidox. And you'll hear that means day is God, dox is a pun on documentary and glory or worship. And so he was doing kind of filmmaking things, documentary style, so kind of documenting stories of what God was doing in Austin through different ministries. And when I left and they left, it's kind of gotten bigger and more expansive. And so his maybe best known work of Deidox is called Free Burma Rangers. It's a long form documentary on wars in Iraq and Burma. And fun fact, I am on the credits of Free Burma Rangers. I am. Wow. That's I don't know if I have IMDb credit for it, but
interesting.
I'm on there.
Cameo.
This is the gracious guy he is. He sent it to me and wanted to just get my perspective, and I sent him a few paragraphs back about what I thought, but it was enough to be in the credits.
That's good. That explains that little statue on your
That's right. Yeah.
the shelf.
So Danielle since then has joined Brent in Deidox, and so you'll find she doesn't call herself an artist, but she is married to an artist and works for a documentary company. And so she's kind of learned to live with one who pursues beauty as their life.
Living with an artist is not easy. So I'm told, at least. So yeah, that kind of like exemplifies the kind of practical stuff we got to in this. Beyond the Deidox stuff was like, what's it like to live with an artist? And also like what makes your art not cheesy? And, just kind of getting into some of that stuff I think she had a really good perspective as someone who is coming into kind of an artistic world, and some of her observations, I think was really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's good to get that outside perspective when you're living in it. And I think it's helpful too, like if you're an artist and your spouse is not, and this may be a good episode to send them, or I think just as a pastor to hear somebody who's from the outside looking in. I think it helped me kind of think about our own artists in our church and how they may be feeling some of the temptations or gifts that they possess that I may not realize. I think it's helpful all around.
Yeah, we're a strange breed.
Gee, guys, we were some weirdos. Yeah. All right, well, here she is, Danielle Gudgel. Welcome to the podcast, Danielle Gudgel.
Yeah, it's so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So the first question we ask our guests is, what's your background with beauty? So did you kind of always appreciate the beautiful and the arts? Did that arrive later in life? If so, how? Kind of give us your story.
Yeah, I love that question. Your questions definitely had me reflecting. So I experienced a lot of beauty just being the daughter of a worship leader with music. Music was a part of my life a lot. On the other hand, growing up, my family was, in a good way, really generous and a little like utilitarian. So we were very like, well, that's not necessary to spend money on that. And I actually found that was a key reason, just being such pragmatic, if you want to say that. I think creativity is very pragmatic, actually. I've realized full circle. But at the time growing up, it felt like that was excess. That's not necessary, especially because my family tended to try to minister to people in poverty. And so that's a hard juxtaposition, right? And so very just practical. So that tended to mean for me that the arts got pushed aside. I think I probably had creativity and a pursuit for beauty when I was a kid in certain ways, kind of like that childlike faith. But yeah, I was reflecting. I don't think that it came full circle until I had to come to terms with being married to yeah, somebody who really processed beauty in a different way, pursued it in a different way, that I had to really decide to take that topic on head on.
When you say you've realized that beauty or the arts are pragmatic, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I think, when I was living in Austin, Texas and had my babies there and was stuck in a house a lot, being a stay-at-home mom, and I started to notice that the only relief, like I love being a mom, but it was just a lot. My family wasn't in town so much. Uh,
You don't have to explain yourself. You know.
So yeah, anybody who has kids gets it. So yeah, the only like relief that was just like, okay, where can I go? What can I do that can feel like adventure and excitement was just take like for my own journey was taking walks or being outside. And so I think I started to kind of process like that God was an artist and that art was like it was everything I was seeing around me. It was so beautiful. And then let's see. The other thing that I've really been processing lately is so again I met my husband under that context, right? Of being more utilitarian, whatever, like an achiever, very much like get down to the brass tacks and do whatever helps us help more people quicker and use our money on that. And then after that, just kind of hearing more from my husband Brent, I just started to wonder, yeah, like how do I reconcile this? And he finished a film called Free Burma Rangers, and the Holy Spirit was really a part of it, truly, like the production of that movie. And they do ministry to people who are refugees, who are in poverty, in war-torn situations. That's what the film is about. And then how God was doing miraculous things in war. And right when that movie released, the budget tripled for them. And I think I just started to kind of realize that it's not so black and white. Yeah.
That's good.
Seems like a lot of artists that we talk to have struggled along the way to call themselves an artist. Would you say you're an artist or would you say you're artistic?
I think this is such a good question. Yeah, because I have a best friend whose husband is in the music industry, and we both will say our husbands are artists. We are artistic and appreciative of the arts. Because for us, like, all I can explain is my husband, his form of expression in the arts is like it's integral to his personality. It's integral to the way that he does life, and he can't imagine not doing it. And where I have passions, a lot of the way I do life and achieve things is like transferable to kind of whatever field. And so, yeah, for me, I would call myself artistic because I've done storytelling. I can judge that I think something's beautiful. But for Brent, it's like at his core. I've definitely tried to see, even in our marriage, can you just like shift over this way, to figure out something else? And it rattles him to the core. It's ever since we just kind of, my friend and I have, as like wives to artist husbands, have realized there's just something else. There's like a different calling or something. That's how we see it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to jump down a little bit to a later question that we wrote you, but we've been talking about your husband who's an artist. And I think it's an interesting kind of world to live in as the spouse of an artist, right? So we have lots of artists on the podcast. They give their perspective. But being married to an artist, I'm sure, comes with lots of blessings and greatnesses and also challenges. And so what words of wisdom maybe would you have for the spouse of an artist?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for asking. When you wrote these to me, because we were going to, meet a bit ago, it actually helped me process it. And I do have permission from Brent to say that sometimes there are moody artists and
Not naming names, but
sometimes might be
sometimes.
often. And They feel a lot and go
Yeah.
through the process. And I think, you kind of like, because there is a very like engineer mind, like scientific kind of structure to doing art too. It's not just like all emotions and instincts, but because maybe you're going through that process, it can just be a lot to personally walk through. So we joked that I was allowed to say that. But I think I think when, I mean, it looks really cool to do art. So, like, that's just how funny and basic it is for me that when I met him, I was like, whoa, he did a film. And because at that time, it was his first film had released. And so he was, on dates taking me to all these cool spots. And I know, like, my friend whose husband is in music, it's just really fun to see when something actually gets finished. And I think the harder parts tend to be a lot of artists have to do subcontract work. And I think if I could give myself advice or give someone marriage advice, it would maybe just be to help prep them around some of like the unordinary ways that, like, often artists don't have a straight laced government job with a pension, you know what I mean, when they're 25 or from then on or whatever. So yeah, I think what I didn't expect was how we'd have to be flexible and move outside the box. And I think it'll probably work differently for every person, but I think I would probably suggest embrace those ups and downs sooner rather than later because they are hard. But for me, at least, it was almost like I truly joke, if you can't beat them, join them. Like Brent and I joke like that and say, because it was for years that, again, I'm not like, I didn't characterize myself as somebody who always wanted to like spend a bunch of money and be so superficial. And I needed to have a perfect job, right? Where to make sure that I got to spend. But like, I did tend to be that personality that was wanted the ducks in a row, and then we'd even want to give a lot or something, but I wanted my ducks in a row to figure that out. And so a lot of the approaches I took, we couldn't figure it out with him as a subcontractor. And so in the end, I'm not saying this is what everybody else has to do, but I just joined his nonprofit and started working with him. And it's been it's been a lot better just to figure that out because he wanted me around more, and instead of me like trying to get jobs where I was trying to like compensate for that, the ups and downs and unpredictability that can come with that kind of work. At least in filmmaking, it's very like big projects. You have to get funding. So there's just different variables than having a predictable job with like, exactly how much you're going to make and stuff. But we've figured that out a lot better since I've been working with them too. So I think there's ways to do it. And one of my friends also, again, the same one who has we kind of, I guess that's one piece of advice. It's like find other people that get it because there's so many people that don't like with the way that you have to be a parent and live your life and a little differently. Yeah, and process finances differently and stuff like that. So she also is an entrepreneur, and they figure out their schedule each week and balance the rotating schedule. So, yeah.
Great. Yeah, I guess Gary's the artist in this
Cool.
dynamic we're doing here. So
I
I
know, I am
do,
curious. Yeah, like where does it come from for I know I'm not leading the podcast, so
no,
but I'd love to hear anything from you guys too. Yeah.
yeah,
Like
I'd be
where does
interested.
it
I mean, like
begin?
you are an artist. I'm not married
Mm-hmm.
to you, but you're married to somebody else, right? And she has to be
Yes.
with you. Yeah, how have you seen the artist, not artist dynamic at play?
Oh man, she would say the same thing.
Okay.
Big feels, big feels. Um,
My wife says, "I wish you felt anything."
Man, yeah. I mean, it's I think it's difficult for artists and for anyone that kind of feels like that to understand or to have patience that other people don't feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
Other people don't appreciate everything you do. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I think that it's really difficult when you want the person closest to you to appreciate you the most, yet they see it every day and they've got a lot of other things going on in their life too. And For me, it's kind of a vocation, but it's regular and consistent and something that she's so used to. I think it's pretty normal though when you shift context. I was just telling someone that today. In any case, you've got to understand what makes a person the way that they are. And when you understand that, and that some of it's just in you, some of it's learned, I think that it gives you a lot of grace for the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we've kind of had to learn with an artist who does feel a little bit abstract in his thinking sometimes, or kind of more appreciative and want to stop and see things and want to show things. You want them to appreciate the same things, and it can be disappointing when they don't. And you're like, "What? Don't you see it?"
Uh-huh.
But she's great and patient and long suffering.
I think that is really insightful. Just getting to the core, allowing people to be different, trying to understand why they're different. Like one of the things that was so wild to me was how Brent had to get all the aesthetics, including lighting and sound, when we're just watching like a TV show or something on YouTube. And I don't even notice. And so, but yeah, like trying to like that's why he's good at production, obviously. Yeah. What kind of art do you do? Or what creates
I paint.
work?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Mostly.
Yeah. The aesthetic is true. I mean, for about 10 minutes before each podcast episode, Gary's, fiddling with the camera and the lights.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it's fine to me.
It's good enough.
Yeah.
I'm a good enough guy. But there's something about that
Yeah.
artistic sensibility that's just like, you can dial it in a way that
Yes.
makes it better. That really makes it better.
Yes.
But that, for me, I often can't have the attention to see or something. Yeah.
It's so like you said, abstract. It starts that way and then it can get so technical. That's what I think my brain is the total opposite. I'm like, here's the information, here's how we're going to achieve it. But I just go out and kind of throw stuff around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I met you and Brent, we were both living in a kind of the same neighborhood with some similar friends in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
And he established this nonprofit that we've talked about already called Deidox. And you've mentioned that you work for it now.
Yeah.
And so I'm interested, for people who don't know what Deidox is, sell us on it. What is it? What's your role in it? What do you guys do? What do you guys hope to do?
Yeah. Yeah. So you said the name correctly. Good job. We chose an interesting name. Yeah. Brent started it with Dave Mahanes, who's so awesome and is still in Austin. They both did their own work on this side, but they basically saw that there are so many God stories, the kind that the best way for me to describe is you go on a mission trip or you meet a Christian leader and you're like, whoa, there's a whole story unfolding that I've never seen. And stories there's so many studies on it. Like there was a Stanford study that said, I think I'm going to get it right. So this is kind of unofficial quote. Like when people watch or learn stories and facts at the same time, they walk away remembering, I can't remember if it was 60 or 70% of the story, and it's like a really small percentage of facts. We started thinking around discipleship, just all our friends, like, well, then storytelling is a really important part of discipleship. And if not everybody can go on these trips and meet these people, what if they got to see their story? And so that's what Brent felt called to probably 16, 17 years ago. And then he pursued that. We went to Austin and pursued it more there. And that's when they started production on Free Burma Rangers, which has been the bigger work he's done. But there's on YouTube, you can see The Faithful. It's a group of stories about just average Christians that are experiencing transformative stories because of what God's doing in their lives. I'm just trying to showcase how that is meant to even be like a mission to send it out and to hopefully have media alternatives even for people to know that they can see God's stories too, that hopefully are well done enough that people don't keep saying Christian stories are cheesy and they're like, okay, I like this. I feel engaged and it's nice. But it's about God and people who are following him. And so I joined, like I said, kind of by accident, really, with us saying, if you can't beat him, join him. I was trying to take a teaching job that really wasn't good. It wasn't a good position. It was a rough situation. And I finally faced that I needed to leave, but I'm thinking like, oh man, Brent's a one-man show doing nonprofit work, and like that's a lot for him. And I kept thinking I needed to get other jobs. And instead, because I was in a situation where I was like, what am I supposed to do? This teaching job didn't turn out the way I wanted. He said, like, I have something for you. And so I started production on Miraculous, which is a podcast we do where we tell stories that couldn't have happened without God's divine intervention. And we're not hoping that like miracles themselves will be showcased and people will feel like they have to have a transaction with that. We're like, I need a miracle too. More, we just want people to encounter our miraculous God through an experience. And so there's a reflection time where you can kind of like connect with the theme of the story and connect, like have time set aside to dwell in God's presence and listen to music afterwards. And so that's how I started. And because I'm a teacher, Brent and our other coworker, Andrew Alkema, started to say, well, what if we could do more training because you like teaching? What if our work can be multiplied through training other people to do this work? So that's what we've been doing. And we have friends at Generous Church who joined the Miraculous podcast, and they're going to start releasing in September. And we've been training churches and ministries this last year as well.
Nice.
So that's what we're up to.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I want to follow up on that. One thing you talked about cheesy, trying not to be cheesy or offering something that's not cheesy. Kind of one of the things that we talk about in redeeming the arts is kind of how do we as Christians avoid being kitsch or superficial or shallow? What do you think makes the movies that you guys are producing?
Yeah. I think there's probably creative things that I don't even know that Brent does, like his skill sets when he's overseeing an editor. Yeah, like there's probably a lot of technical work that I couldn't even speak to. But for me, my first instinct is just to say that so we're doing documentaries. I guess I don't know if I mentioned that. So Day stands for God, Latin God. Dox is a pun where it's documentaries, but it's also dox, like doxology worship. Like this is worship to God. It's like a spiritual discipline for us to do this as worship to just show what God's up to. So all that to say, wait, I lost my train of thought. Remind me. That was going to connect.
Well, yeah, I was just curious, how do you avoid becoming the kind of art that we've sort of come to criticize for so long as superficial or...
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that helps me. So I think probably just you don't have to, the biggest payoff for God's redemption is to tell the cold, hard truth of what was not going well in storytelling. And so I think that's probably part of it. We try not to shock anybody with war scenes too much or like too harsh. You know, there's taste to it, I guess. But like, I think it's just that posture of kind of how all of us have had to even work through doubt at points in our relationship with God. Like, he can handle us saying that this is like the lie that someone's stuck in and this is how it gets redeemed. But you have to be willing to kind of explore how the stakes get raised and what's getting in the way. So I think that's probably it. I think probably just there could, I know this is kind of a tricky thing to say, but there could be, for a while it was like all the Christian stories were athletes who became famous at the end, or like artists who became famous at the end. And I think a lot of people just want to know how God works through a redemptive story without it being like a success story in the American way, maybe, or something. That's my opinion. But
yeah, just tell the truth about what you see. And that that sometimes life is difficult.
Yeah. And God really is working to redeem it. So my instincts when I started was, well, what if I look through all the problems? Like my first story was someone who almost committed suicide. And so, what if I work through those problems and there isn't a miracle if I'm working on that podcast? I've never run into that problem. Like maybe we're still in the middle of someone's story, but yeah, like God's always going to do something. So.
Every person in the world has something good and wonderful. We can stand together against evil. I want that story to be told. I felt God say, just come help these people.
And I want you to solve. I was asking myself, how can I bring hope? How can I bring new life to the situation?
What it's about is saying, here's everything I have, it's yours. How can we serve you?
This is the craziest thing in the world to do, and yet we had to respond.
While hundreds of thousands fled, an American and his family moved in
to help victims that are caught on the front lines of the war on terror.
Everything we've done culminates here. Lord, what do I do?
Whoever wants to go, go!
No matter what it costs.
Some people might say, why do we need to tell stories? We talk to like poets and painters and stuff like that. It's like for poets, we always say, like, why not just say it? Why do you have to say it like this? But I'm wondering, from your perspective as a documentary filmmaker, we have sermons, we have the Bible. Why do we have to tell stories in these particular ways?
Yeah. Well, the Bible's a story. So I'd start there. The best story. And there are certain genres in the Bible that are not stories, but most of it's a story. And Jesus used stories. And he did give sermons too. But even those are like lots of little stories, right? Even in that. And so we're not creating anything new or innovative in that way of using story. I personally think, like, how people have been being reminded to breathe, like, remember there's air, you can slow down. And then you're like, oh yeah, there's air, I should be thankful for that. Breathe. I feel like stories have some comparison to that, where it's so a part of what we do and what our lives, we're living a story. The Bible's a true story of how God wanted to send his redemptive message to the world and record it, right? So it's in the fabric of what we're doing. And so it's kind of ironic sometimes, because I think there is that sentiment, but it's so obvious when you start thinking about it that it's integral in all that we're doing. And like I was saying about, there's studies, about how it transforms people. So a lot of pastors end up using stories for a significant part of their connection to a sermon too, I think. So yeah.
Good.
That's good. What's Deidox up to currently? And if people are interested in just learning more or getting involved, what's kind of your future, kind of present? What are we doing now, and what are some of your future goals and things?
Yeah, so if you go to deidox.org, you'll see different, things that we're up to, as far as just if you want to look into more of the details. But Brent gave me on the whiteboard a link, fbrmovie.com. That's where you can see Free Burma Rangers, the platforms that it's on. And we have some new platforms that might be coming, but for now it's on a few. It came out a month before COVID, and then so like it did well in theaters, and then it shut down. So 7 million people have seen it and like seen what God did, but a lot of those people are in Asia, because that's where some of it takes place. And so we do want more people in the US, or from different audiences, to see what God did. And we're still gathering and looking through new footage. And we just started fundraising last year for the Undiscovered Land. It's a follow-up series, docu-series, because they went to Burma and Iraq in the first film, but people are asking, well, what's this family up to now? And what was it like for them to face these situations as the kids were growing up? And what countries did they still continue to go to? They've been in Syria and Ukraine since, and a few other places. So there's more storytelling. And then that training, we're just excited to see other people realize that they could engage with media as media missionaries. And then while they have eyes to see these stories and ears to hear what God's up to, because they're just setting out on this pursuit to document stories themselves and multiply that work. We're trying to help in any way we can. But there's, training materials and a master class available and coaching. We'll be revamping that this fall, 2025 too, because it's growing. But right now it's pretty simple, just on the website.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Last word to you, Danielle, something you want to tell. Maybe you could just look at Brent and tell him as a Christian artist what's something you want to leave with him, but more generally too, for our audience who are listening, what is any wisdom you'd have to give to a Christian artist?
I think I would, if they're feeling lonely and they're like doing it on their own, because a lot, I feel like that is a journey for a lot of artists. I guess I would just pray for them that they would see teammates in their life, because generally speaking, sometimes it's not the case all the time, but a lot of artists, I think, could partner with people, and I pray that they'll find people who will complement them and like fill in those gaps, because often the vision is so big that not one person can do it all by themselves. It's interesting because it's such a personal experience being an artist, but executing it, I think it's been really good for Brent to have teammates the last year. And I also would recommend using your creative giftings as a spiritual discipline for God, because it is sad when creative work is separated from our experience with the gospel. And I love that Brent figured out early on that it didn't feel right that way, and that he could figure out how to use his high standards in the Christian world. And that, there's overlap. I guess it's kind of that secular and sacred coming together. It's probably a journey for everybody to figure that out. But yeah, I hope people find collaboration, friendship. Yeah. And hold on to that.
That's a good word. Yeah. I think that's the, one of the kind of beginnings of our process, and Gary's process was him interviewing artists and them feeling unfulfilled in their work, but then realizing those sacred and secular, what I do and what I believe, are totally separate. And so how are you going to have fulfilling work if the thing that you say is most important to you is not involved in it?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a good word, and a good way to end is to seek those, maybe not even intersections, but seek those realities that they are together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Danielle, thanks for your time. Thanks for what you do at Deidox, and I'm excited to see all that you guys are continuing to do. It's always good to see an old friend.
Yeah, thank you.